personally I look for a lot of times, to where I've got all the options that I need, but I've got them all somewhat confined to chart options and my depth highlights, 5 feet out to 10 feet. And you can be zoomed out and really tell how stuff lays, because regardless of wind direction, you've got something that's protected. You've got something that's going to be catching some sunlight. It's neat because you can really tell those places that get real steep. And that time of year, I like that steep stuff. You know, I like places that have those real sharp transitions. I feel like that's where those fish can pull up and feed. Hey everybody, welcome back to the garage, and we're here to actually kick off a new series, something I'm pretty excited about. And you know, we'd asked for some input, and we ended up combining our pick two with our technique of the month, but wanted something else to you know, to have kind of that series like that we'd been doing. And JD and I talked about, Jenny and I had talked about it, and what we came up with was actually to do a series to preview all of our stops on the Bass Pro Tour this year. So that's kind of what this series is going to be, a Bass Pro Tour map study series. You know, spend a lot of time doing that, you know, from the time we get our schedule all the way up until actually leave for an event, really looking at those places, those bodies of water. And one thing that's really exciting, honestly, to me about the 2024 season is that we have some new fisheries, actually multiple new fisheries, certainly for the Bass Pro Tour, but even in general, places that I've never been before. We're going to multiple new fisheries. So that's a fun part of the job. You know, I love going to those new places, and even going to places that I've been, but at a different time of the year, just because it's kind of like a new lake at that point in time. But either way, really exciting schedule that we've got for the 24 season. Going to some fantastic places, some new places, different times of the year, all those kind of things. And just a little bit of basis about this. I honestly do a lot of this map study on my iPad. I've got my Lake Master mapping on my iPad, and I'm able to do it there. That way I don't have to necessarily come to the boat and fire up my Humminbirds to do it. But for the purpose of this video, we are doing it this way. Just makes it easier to record, because this camera that's back here that you can't see right now is just locked in on the screen. So whenever we do that, we're just shooting it off of that screen. That's why we're doing this the way that we are. It just seemed like the easiest way that we could make it work. So just a little thought there. But yeah, most of my map study, when I'm actually just studying maps at home, I do that on my iPad, and I do it because the mapping's the same. It's excellent. It's all my Lake Master mapping, and I can also flip over to Google Earth and different kinds of stuff like that, all from that one device. So just a little bit of background as far as how that goes. But stop one, Toledo Bend, we're there end of January into early March. Let me look and see exactly what those dates are. It's not very far away, to be quite honest. Let's see. So our practice, I believe, will start on Saturday the 27th of January, and the tournament runs through February 4th is the final day of that event. So, you know, late January, early February, down there on the Texas-Louisiana line at Toledo Bend. And Toledo's a huge lake, in case you didn't know this. It's like, I believe it's 180,000 acres. Somebody can tell me that I'm wrong on that, but I think that that's what it is. It's a giant lake. A lot of big fish in it too. It's got some giant fish in it. And I've fished multiple events there. Fished, I believe, 3 Elite Series events on Toledo Bend over the course of my career. I know Chris Lane won one. That was where the Whopper Flopper became popular, was with Chris's win there at Toledo Bend. Fish won there. Brent Chapman won. Jacob Prosnick won one there that I fished in. And then that was the one my rookie year that was low water that maybe Dean Rojas, I think, won that one. I actually fished some areas around Dean in that particular tournament, and the water was like 7 feet low in that one. So maybe fished there 4 times, I guess, over the course of my career, but never as early in the year as what we're going to be there this year coming up. So all those events, the one in June was obviously a summertime, you know, sure enough, summertime one. Fish, some that were there when fish were spawning. Some were post spawn, some were spawn. There was some shad spawn going on in some of those. So I've never fished there in a pre-spawn tournament. I don't know that I've ever caught any pre-spawn bass on Toledo Bend. Obviously, we're fishing a winter / pre-spawn, kind of that earliest part of the pre-spawn, you would say, as far as when we're going to be there, and very weather dependent. This time of the year, you could catch a mild winter and catch a warm week, and fish be doing very different things than they are when versus a very cold week of the year. So let's look at Toledo Bend as a whole. So you zoom out here, you see it's hard to tell it by this map, but it is a big, big, long place. From the dam to the north end up there where the river comes in. I hate to just take a shot in the dark like this, but I'm going to. I don't. Let's do this. Let's do a little better job of measuring this. Okay, I was thinking 60 miles. Looks like about 55 miles or so from the south end down there at the dam up to the north end of the lake. So about 55 miles. Take off where we take off from is just south of that. So it's a little bit closer to the lower end of the lake than it is the north end of the lake. But Toledo as a whole, it's what I would classify as a lowland fishery. It doesn't have a lot of steep banks, doesn't have a ton of natural rock. It is mostly sloping banks, a lot of flats, a lot of places that don't have. It's not a table rock. It's not linear. It's not lakes in East Tennessee and that kind of stuff. It's not like some other stuff in Texas. It's not like a Belton, not like a Whitney. It's not like those lakes. Definitely what I would classify as a lowland fishery. Um, Lots of big creek arms. Creek arms you could fish your whole week in and never fish it all twice. So a very, very big, very vast fishery. Just the one main arm going up the lake, the Sabine, going up through there. That lower end, okay, we're going to start down here and look at it a little bit. That lower end, very deep. The times I've been there, it's always been pretty clear. I'm going to say at least 4 feet of visibility. I've been there when you could see 6 or 8 feet. Definitely very clear and a lot of deep water. A lot of water deeper than 30 feet. A lot of stuff 50, 60, 70 feet deep out there, out in the main basin of the lake. So what does that mean? Okay, you got clear water, deep water down there on that lower end, and the whole thing of Toledo Bend, north to south, has got a lot of standing timber. Back in the creeks on the main lake, tons of standing timber on the whole lake. But that south end has so much deep water, and it just has a big volume of water. So that water is going to cool off really slow. It's going to warm up really slow. You're not going to get as drastic of fluctuations in water temperature on that south end. The north end, you get warm weather, boy, it's going to warm up quick as a whole. You get cold weather, it's going to get cold really quick. So you're going to have those major swings up there more so. The north end is where you could have 3 or 4 days of temps. Lows get down in the 20s or something, and you could start seeing some skim ice up there in some of those backwaters and that kind of stuff. The south end, you probably ain't ever going to see that. Maybe way in the back of a little shallow pocket or something. But that north end, extreme cold conditions are really going to affect it negatively for the time of year that we're going to be there. So that's something I'm going to be paying close attention to going up close to the tournament. If they've had major cold trends and that type of stuff. If it's been more mild, also going to pay attention to that because that north end could be going to play a little bit more. But you get down here on this south end, what I would expect those fish out there to be doing, again, clear water, deeper water, more of that. Those fish are going to be out in those ditches and in those channels and in that type of stuff. That's where they're going to spend their winter. Kind of more of a traditional, I'm going to say, bite as to what you would expect down there. We can't use Alabama rigs, but I know they catch a lot of fish on an Alabama rig down there. They catch a lot of fish on a Carolina rig out on some of that stuff. They catch fish on blade baits. They catch them on Damiki type stuff. Any of those type of things, that's kind of what they, how those fish get caught, it seems, on that south end of the lake. And that's not to say that you can't get back into one of those tributaries or something and find some grass or something and find those fish on a lipless crankbait or a bladed jig or an OG, something along those lines, kind of more of that kind of stuff, especially if there's any grass. I have no idea. I've not been to Toledo in years. So I have no idea if there is any grass in those places down on the south end. But if you could find any of that type of stuff and a little bit of off-colored water, those are the kind of places that you could catch them a little bit shallower down there. Historically, some places I fished on that end of the lake that are good for me, the housing area, the Indian Mounds, that type of stuff. Those are all, the nice thing about, and one thing I always liked about Indian Mounds myself, it didn't have real big creeks, so it didn't have pockets that went way back in off of the main lake. You've got some humps and stuff out in front of it that run out. The channel's over there pretty close to that side, so you've got deep water right out in front of it. But you've got a little bit of everything in kind of a confined space, and that's something that personally I look for a lot of times, to where I've got all the options that I need, but I've got them all somewhat confined, to where I'm able to try to get a pattern together, and then I can go to those areas that are bigger and more vast, and hopefully I already have a lot of stuff eliminated, and I can really focus in on it. One thing I should have mentioned here, I'm going to just zoom in on this area. It's a fairly flat area, and just kind of show you how I've got my shading done on this map. So we're going to go over here, touch chart, come down here to chart options, and my depth highlights. So what I've got right here, I can't scroll my map, but so out to 5 feet is red. That's my shallow water highlight. And my depth highlight 1 is from 5 feet out to 10 feet. And I've got that in orange. From 10 to 20, I've got in yellow. From 20 to 30, I've got in green. And then from 30 to 40, I've got in purple. And everything out beyond 40 is then just kind of in that standard blue that is already in from the factory. So red, orange, yellow, green, purple, kind of as you get deeper and deeper is how I've got my map set up. And that just makes it, man, you can be zoomed out and really tell how stuff lays. You can zoom in and really see that separation well. That's been a shading system that's worked well for me there in the past. But we're going to zoom in right here in the Indian Mounds and take one of these places, one of these branches here, for example, and really kind of dive into it. So you get back into this. It's got multiple fingers here. I like that when it comes in and splits, because regardless of wind direction, you've got something that's protected. You've got something that's going to be catching some sunlight. Then you've got some defined channels. You can see these channels, how they kind of swing in through here. And you've got some stuff that is more of a channel swing, and I know there's a lot of stumps in this particular area. So you've got a little bit of everything. And if there was any grass growing, this is a good place, a good opportunity to have some grass in some of that stuff. And that, if those fish aren't all the way back here, maybe they're in this where this ditch has got, 10, 12 foot of water out in the ditch. You come on out a little bit deeper, and then you've got 15, 18 foot of water out in that ditch, and you get out here and get where we're in some green and start picking up 20. But a couple things right here that really kind of caught my eye. This is right out here, kind of out near the mouth of this ditch, and just zoomed out at that level. It's neat because you can really tell those places that get real steep, because those contour lines really stack up and give you kind of that black look, because those lines are basically touching each other. So a lot of the stuff is fairly steep. It's got some drop, whatever. But boy, that section right there is real steep. That section right over here is real steep right off the side of that point. We've got another real steep spot right here. And that time of year, I like that steep stuff. I like places that have those real sharp transitions. I feel like that's where those fish can pull up and feed. Then they can slide right back off and have that security of that deep water right there close by. I catch a lot of fish on those type of places late in the winter, early in the spring, like when we will be here. But yeah, that Indian Mountain area, traditionally a very good area of the lake. A lot of fish have been caught around there. It personally has been good to me. Gonna zoom out here. If you come up, I want to look at a little bit of stuff up here on this end of the lake as well before we wrap this one segment up here on Toledo Bend. You start coming north. This is the big bridge that crosses the main part of the lake right there. I don't see what highway number that is on here right now, but yeah, big bridge that crosses, and that's, for the most part, most people consider that the midpoint of the lake. It's really not. There's truly much more lake north of it than there is south. But a lot of big creeks there just above that, especially over on the Louisiana side. Then you come on up, and the lake really gets less creeks and stuff once you get on up there above Huxley or so. There's not as many creek arms and big pockets and that type of thing. More just the main lake, and that's a part up there I've honestly never fished much. It's a pretty long boat ride, honestly, um, and there's not a lot of, like I said, there's not a lot of stuff off of the main lake. Um, I don't know I don't know just how many fish live up there. I know there's some, and I know that there. I mean, it's Texas. It's Toledo Bend, so there's definitely some fish up there. But the thing with that, it's if you look at this just as a whole and just look at it, if the wind was really blowing north or south, these fish don't have a ton of places to get protected from them for a spawn. Okay, you've pretty much got main lake. You've got a few little cuts and stuff here and there. Um, but just considering how many big creeks and big pockets and all that kind of stuff you've got, down towards the south end or middle part of the lake even, there's just so much less up here as far as lots of areas for those fish to spawn. Now there certainly are places, and I mean, hundreds of acres or thousands of acres, so there's no doubt populations of fish up here, and there's places, for them to be caught. But historically, there's never been a lot of tournaments won on that end of the lake. That doesn't mean I'm not going to spend some time up there if we get the right conditions. If leading up to that tournament, it looks like the weather's going to be stable, it looks like it's going to be decent, and it has been that way, for a little bit of time before that. If we're going into this tournament and I'm expecting for during the event, lows are going to be in the 20s, it's probably not the best idea to be up there on that end of the lake because it's going to be affected the most by those really cold temperatures. So that's just kind of my thought process going in as far as where I'm liable to spend my time. If it's really nice, hey, I may be up that way for multiple reasons. To get away from pressure is a big part of it, and then just because the fish may be maybe more aggressive up there if the water's warmed up more. So I'm excited about it. Toledo Bend's a fun place. Again, I fished there a few times over the year, but never this early. So I'm excited to see what it's going to be like. There's really not a lot better time of year to catch an 8 or 10 pounder on Toledo Bend than late January, early February, or to even try to catch a sherrylunker. So it's Texas is a fun place. We are technically going out of Louisiana, but half the lake's in Texas, so I'm going to say I'm going to Texas. But yeah, definitely excited for Toledo Bend. Stage 1 on the Bass Pro Tour. Should be a fun event.